Hello, and on the gaming table today, we're taking another look at a playtest of Ork Warz. So in Ork Warz, the orcs themselves don't actually have statistics. There are no numbers that represent their skills and abilities. Instead, they have traits, which are qualities like being tough or being a cunning fighter or something like this. And so what I decided to do in this test is to give all of the orcs some traits to make them more effective in that way and see how that all balances out in a game, to see if you kind of take it to the extreme, what will happen in the rules. So this is another test that I have to run. So here you can see the setup for this one. Basically got kind of a bit of a junk field here, and we're going to have two groups of orcs fighting across it. So one group on the left and one group on the right. So away we go. So the traits that I've given to the orcs here, all of the orcs have the tuff trait. That means that they have a better defense, they take damage less easily. And all of the orcs with a long arm, like a rifle, will have the dead shot trait, so they can shoot better. And all of the orcs that are predominantly with melee weapons will have the cunning fighter trait, so that means they're better in melee combat. The way that will show up in the dice rolls that you're seeing on screen is a green dice. That's a benefit dice. I'll talk about how the dice mechanics work another day, but for now, as you see green dice, that's the effect of these positive traits that the orcs have. Early on here, you can see a lot of jockeying for position as the orcs move around, taking advantage of cover and trying to line up shots and so on. There was some shooting happening there, but with the longer ranges and the cover involved, even though there were benefit dice happening here for the orcs, they weren't actually getting positive outcomes that often. So yeah, nothing much happening at the moment. And even though I'm just solo playing this, kind of against myself, I'm not going in with a particular plan. I'm just letting the orcs kind of react to the moment. So trying to do basic strategies like flanking and withdrawing if you're getting outnumbered in a certain direction and so on. Things like this, just kind of the basic stuff you would do in a normal game. And so in general, it's just let the game develop and see what happens with the rolls. You can see at the bottom left of the screen here, two of the orcs have become engaged in combat. That essentially pins one of them down, and so other orcs here start to move in that direction to try and gang up down there and try and take that orc out in melee combat. So we'll see how that develops in the coming moments. Also, in the top right of the picture here, a similar situation develops, and as orcs get pinned down in melee combat, other orcs start to react to that to try and get gang up opportunities. It is possible to withdraw from melee combat, but it's much more difficult, so sometimes it's easier to try and knock down your foe rather than just trying to pull back. And it's in the top left where the first action occurs, where one of the left-hand orcs, as it were, gets taken down by two of the orcs that started on the right-hand side there. Also down in the bottom left, you can see there's kind of a 2-on-2 situation developing down there. We'll see how that one plays out as well. In terms of how the traits on the orcs were playing out here, it was becoming a little bit easier to hit each other with melee attacks and so on, but because of that tough trait, improving defense, it was becoming harder to actually have an effect and actually knock your opponent down. So that was interesting how that was playing out. The tough trait is a little bit better than some of the other traits, it seems. Also, we have the two orcs, one on the left and one on the right, trying to shoot each other at very long range. They've both got long arms, both got rifles, and so they're trying to shoot each other. And as you can see, the orc that started on the left has success when he knocks down his foe on the right with a very long range shot there. However, that's somewhat tempered by the fact that the left-hand orcs have suffered another casualty down in the bottom left here, and so at the end of the turn, both sides now need to take morale tests based on their casualties. They both managed to pass in this case, but the left-hand side orcs, the ones who started on the left, are in a little bit of worse shape at this stage. The righties, as it were, also have a good start to the next turn when they managed to completely take out the two downed orcs. They stuck the boot in and caused permanent casualties there. So those two orcs are now retired from the battle, and now it becomes a 5-on-3. So as things continue here, the 5-on-3 develops, and it takes a little while for things to actually happen here. What I discovered, I think, through this test is that having that tough trait, that defensive trait, does kind of slow things down a little bit. The orcs become less fragile, and that actually just makes the game take a little bit longer. That's not necessarily a bad thing, makes the orcs a bit more survivable, but it means that you have to get a little bit lucky to take them down and take them out. Or unlucky if you're the defender, and it just gives a few more actions and things that can happen before effects come in. So that's not a bad thing, it's just a feature of what happens in this kind of situation. And as the next turn or two go on here, even though the righties have a couple of orcs down, they're not down and out, and the lefties suffer another down and out due to another sticking the boot in. And so now that puts it into kind of a 5-on-2 situation. It means that the lefties are going to have a much, much harder time passing the morale test. The righties have the chance to recover. They're downed orcs still. They're not completely taken out of play. And so things are definitely going against the lefties. The righties here keep pushing their advantage. They keep engaging. They keep the pressure on. They do manage to recover one of their own orcs, the shooter in the bottom right there. And eventually the lefties fail their morale test, and so the survivors will now flee the field. So that was interesting. It was good to see how the traits worked. It didn't change the game massively. It did make some of the orcs a little bit more survivable, as I mentioned. And the game took slightly longer, perhaps, but still, it was basically the same affair. And some orcs had advantages, and those were countered by defensive advantages, but it all played out fairly normally. So I'm pretty happy. Having lots of traits is not going to break the game. It's just going to mean it plays slightly differently. Well, I hope you found that a little bit interesting. I've got a couple of other videos here that I'll get up shortly, one including a playtest with an actual real player who's very new to wargaming, and so that's the point of this game. Let's see how it works with a brand new wargamer. I'll get that one up soon, along with a couple of others. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.